Hello and welcome to Broken Entertainment. So today I want to talk about why this attempt by Disney to create the Star Wars High Republic is going to fail in epic and complete disaster, and not for the reasons we've already talked about, of which there are plenty. You know, the authors don't care about the subject. The authors sometimes don't even care about being authors. Agenda-driven crap, etc., etc. But just the rollout plan is a complete failure. And this was first brought up by Clownfish TV in a video they have. I'll link that down below. But the problem with it is Disney is trying to make you buy everything to understand anything. So that comes from an article here on comicbook.com in which they interview one of the authors. And it says, "The High Republic is a multi-year initiative, a gigantic interconnected story told across many different publishing mediums, from comics to middle grade to adult novels like Light of the Jedi. The story is huge, and we're going to move through it along all those paths. Every book or comic has a piece of the overall story, and you can read as much or as little as you like, but the fullest experience will be if you read it all." So they're telling you out of the gate, you have to buy the novels, the novellas, the short stories, the comics, the graphic novels, the picture books for kids, and you have to watch the cartoons that are going to come out. And you have to do that to get the whole story. Now, Disney acts like this is the first thing to ever do this, but it's fundamentally not. There are multiple large interconnected story groups that have existed before this, and I'm sure they will exist after this. And one of them, arguably the first one, is Star Wars itself. They now call it Star Wars Legends, but Star Wars The Extended Universe was an interconnected story. It consisted of novels, it consisted of comics, it consisted of video games, and later on it consisted of cartoons. But the difference was, first of all, we didn't roll a whole bunch of stuff out all at once. And second of all, you didn't have to buy everything. You could buy specific arcs. You could buy some books that told a specific story. You could buy a video game and enjoy that story, but you didn't have to read the novels to understand Revenge of the Sith. Not Revenge of the Sith. Mysteries of the Sith. You didn't have to play Mysteries of the Sith to understand Heir to the Empire or what have you. And that's what Disney's doing. They're saying you have to buy all this or you're not going to get the full picture. So, another example of somebody that has done this before is BattleTech. BattleTech has existed, looks like first book published in 1986. And they did not come out all at once. They existed as a tabletop game. They existed as novels. They existed as, I don't believe there were comics. There was a cartoon at one point. And, of course, the MechWarrior computer games. The difference, again, there are arcs within the story, but you don't have to buy everything. You don't have to buy the MechWarrior games to understand the books. You don't have to buy the books to understand the MechWarrior games. And within the books, yes, there are some arcs, but you don't even really, with a couple of exceptions, you don't even really have to buy a large number of books to understand the arcs. Now, you know, you can make the argument of the Clan Invasion and the Federated Commonwealth Civil War are pretty big arcs, but my introduction to the Clan Invasion was like 3 books. And then I just filled it in the rest as I went. But only because I wanted to. I could have stopped, and I had the full story. I had the ending, I had the beginning. But you didn't have to buy across a whole bunch of media. You didn't have to buy a whole bunch of stuff all at once. Let's look at what the High Republic has come out with already. There's already a novel. There's a comic. There's an animated short that's come out. And they're telling you have to have all these to get the full story. And they're going to roll out more next week. You know how often comics come out. And the other people who have done this to great effect. Games Workshop. The Horus Heresy series. 54 novels. Not counting novellas, not counting short stories, not counting audiobooks. 54 novels. Not counting the Horus Heresy tabletop game. Why does it work? And why is it not going to work for the High Republic? Because, again, many of the books take place at different time periods. And all of the books tell self-contained stories. There are a couple of arcs that are, the first 3 books are a distinct trilogy, for example. There's a couple other books that are interconnected. But you can read, for example, you can read Mark of Calth and not read Betrayer. And you'll be fine. For me, I haven't read a lot of these. But I read Ruinstorm without reading Unremembered Empire. And Ruinstorm takes place after Unremembered Empire, and I was fine. You don't have to buy 54 books to understand the story. You don't have to play the tabletop game to understand the story. You could read the first trilogy, and then if you really wanted to, you could stop there, but you, of course, wouldn't get the whole story that way. Or you could skip down to, let's say, Slaves of Darkness, Heralds of the Siege. Now you've got the beginning of the story, and you've got the beginning of the end of the story. And then the Siege of Terra is a separate series. Then you've got the individual books on just the Primarchs. Then you've got the audio books and the audio dramas. And there's a couple of specific character novels. And then the novellas. And then the collections. Short stories. Look at all this. Omnibus editions, audio drama. Look at all the audio dramas. These aren't audio books. These are audio dramas. Art books, script books. There's a graphic novel. But you don't have to buy it all. Because the way they have set it up on purpose is that you can basically pick and choose the stories you're interested in, read those, know that it takes place in this overall war that's going on, but if you choose, like I said, to read the first 3 and the last 2, you'll be fine. But if you're interested in, like I am, the Blood Angels, you don't even really have to read the first 3. You can just jump straight down to, let's see, there's Ruinstorm and there's one other one, I forget the name of it. And just read about Blood Angels and you'll be fine. That's the thing, is that this is 3 major franchises, one of them being Star Wars itself, that have done this before to great effect. But the High Republic isn't following that template. They're not saying, well, you can buy whatever, pick and choose. They're not saying, they take place at different points in time, so if you want to follow this, you can follow that, and you won't need this. They're saying you need all of it to get the full picture of the story. And that's because Disney is thinking, oh man, we're going to get these people interested, and then we're going to make them buy all this stuff, and they're going to go out and they're going to buy all this stuff, and we're going to make a whole crap load of money. But that's not what happens. People get overwhelmed. An example of that, when the Marvel Cinematic Universe really took off, and they started coming out with a whole bunch of movies really fast, rapid fire, movie. It was all telling a connected story, and you had to watch this movie to understand the components of that movie, and so on and so on. They came out so fast, I said, I just don't care anymore. I'm just gonna wait until they're over, and go back and watch them. Or not at all, because quite frankly, I haven't watched most of them. By saying you have to have all this, and then again, there's comic every week. Books, multiple books coming out at the same time. Let's take a look at this list of the Horus Heresy. You could overwhelm someone with the Horus Heresy pretty damn fast too, if you did it like Disney is doing it. But let's look. First 3 books, 2006. Next 3 books, 2007. 2008, 3 books. 2009, an anthology and a book. 2010, 3 books. 2011, an anthology and 2 books. 2012. That's when it starts to take off. But by 2012, they had a base of people that were really invested in this. And people understood, hey, I could buy Deliverance Lost. I don't need No Fear. Disney is so blinded with their desire for money that they don't understand the template that has long existed for something that they're acting like they invented. Again, Battletech, 1986. The EU, 1978. This template's out there. You make compelling characters, you make compelling stories, you connect some of the stories but not all the stories, you have stuff take place at different points in time if you want, and that way people can pick and choose. But they're telling a story from beginning to end, and saying you need the comic book, that'll tie into this, and they've already done this with other stuff. With Star Wars, even, where they make the movies and they leave information out, and then they say, oh, well, if you want to know how the Emperor survived, you've got to go read this book. Okay? And Star Trek has done the same thing in the past. Oh, well, if you want to know where Nero comes from and why his ship is the way it is, you don't get that in the movie, you got to go read the comics. But that's not how people work. That's not how this system works. You got to bring people in. And the other thing going against it is these are all new characters. Every single one of them is a new character. Battletech started with one character. A couple characters in the novel and expanded from there. The Horus Heresy started with one character, and it was a character everybody already knew. Everybody that knows the setting already knew. Horus. Star Wars, EU, 1978. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and Princess Leia. This is all out there. You take characters people know, or if you have something that people don't know the characters, then you introduce them gradually. They're just like, bam, here's like 10 new characters. You don't know anything about them, and it's in a time period you know nothing about. Oh, and you gotta buy everything. This should have started small and gotten big, and it started big, and it's probably gonna get small. But you're taking a risk by saying we're going to introduce this whole new era and ignoring the EU and ignoring the Old Republic time period, and thus discarding every character anybody knows anything about. And that's doable, but not this way. You have to do it a bit at a time. And one thing you could do is bring in a character from the EU. Let's say, I don't know who, because of the time period it takes place in. But take somebody that is relatively popular. Since you've discarded the Old Republic, bring in Revan. There's an example. Bring in Revan. Start with a book about Revan. Then you bring in new characters. Now that people are interested, and they start to invest in those new characters slowly over time, instead of you're going, here's a buttload of new characters and like 4 different things going on at the same time, and if you want to understand this aspect of it, you got to read this, and if you understand this, you got to read this, and you got to go buy this, and you got to watch this, and you got to do this. It doesn't work. And the sad thing is, it could have. We have Battletech, the EU, and the Horus Heresy as examples. They've all done it. They've all been very successful. But Disney doesn't understand Star Wars, with the exception of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And Disney doesn't understand how to build things. Which is funny because they have Marvel and the MCU, which is a perfect example of how this kind of storytelling works. But that was already in place when they bought Marvel. So if Disney doesn't understand something, they just go out and they buy it. And here we are. We have the High Republic coming out. Nobody cares. Nobody's interested. Nothing's selling. Oh, they'll push it a little bit. They'll pretend it's selling. Oh, New York Times bestseller list. Oh, well, it turns out the New York Times bestseller list, what's that decided by? Like 10 people in a room? And select samples from specific bookstores? Not actual best sales. That's why none of the books on the Horus Heresy are talked about on there for the most part. Because the Horus Heresy is not important. Never mind that it sells well. Never mind that the fans love it. So Disney is going to try, and they're going to throw a whole bunch of money out, and they're going to say, buy all of our shit. Just like they always do. Just like Paramount did with Star Trek, saying, oh no, you gotta buy the comics to understand this stuff in the movie. And they did that with all 3 movies, by the way. Can you imagine if, when Star Wars first came out, they said, oh no, to understand, to fully understand Star Wars, the movie, you've got to read this comic and you've got to read this novel. You can see where the model comes from, right? They're thinking a whole lot of money. If everything's interconnected and you have to buy everything to understand it, then people buy everything and you make a whole bunch of money. But people don't buy everything. Not everybody likes to read comics. Not everybody likes to read novels. Not everybody plays computer games. Not to mention, not everybody has money to buy all of that. Especially considering that comics prices keep increasing. And video games are now $60, $70 a pop. But, here we are. Disney has yet to learn. Maybe they will at some point. I don't know. Probably not. Not with the people they have in charge right now, who can only see either dollar signs or ideology, depending on which one you ask. So if you like the video, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're not subscribed, and hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.